to episode 89 of Chew on This, a Nerds United podcast. I'm BJ.
Vic.
So a little while ago, we were at the Intergalactic Expo in Sacramento, West Sacramento, and we had a little raffle, and the people that won got to have a shout-out. And so our shout-out tonight is from Elwin, and it's the Real Word Sound. Would like to give a shout-out to all his fans. So there you go, Elwin. Shout-out to all your fans. Next on the agenda, I would like to talk just briefly a little bit about Patreon. Again, patreon.com is a great website to go to sponsor your favorite artists, such as Chew on This podcast. So we are at patreon.com/Chew on This podcast, and it's as little as $1 per month. And I think with $1 you get your own personal shout out, which is kind of cool. So we would love to have sponsors, but not just because we want to go to different cons and things like that, but because sometimes when we're podcasting, we get hungry and we get thirsty. And so we would like to use some of that cash, that sponsor money, to go and buy a sandwich or a coffee, not from AM/PM, but from Wawa. So
yeah. West Coast Wawa has been our hashtag for the past, 3 months. Wawa's only on the East Coast. I think New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and I think Florida now. So I'm from Jersey, so I miss it. And it would be cool if instead of them, either or would be awesome. Obviously, giving us money to do this shit would be fun, but it'd be also cool if they gave us like a lifetime Wawa card. That would be awesome.
It would be awesome, and then we'd have to literally fly over there for like $500 just to have a sandwich.
No, if they actually, our hashtag.
If they moved over here, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We don't have to fly anywhere. So hashtag West Coast Wawa, and let's just keep this going until they freaking notice and say, okay, let's do it out here.
There you go. Also, to remind all of you guys that if you want to get a hold of us, you can find us in numerous ways. Our Gmail is chewonThisPodcast@gmail.com. And we're also on Twitter and Facebook. We're on there like all the time. So find us on Facebook, Chew on This, and Nerds United Podcast. We're on Twitter and Instagram at Chew on This Pod. We just started doing Chew on This meme. So every other day we come up with little silly memes and whatnot. So check us out there and follow us at all the numerous places. So tonight, actually, what we're going to be doing, finally after a while, is reviewing another movie. And this week, it's one of the most anticipated movies for us was Spider-Man: Homecoming, and I don't even remember where it was on our list, but it's there.
Yeah, I know it was in the top 10.
Yeah, it's pretty high. So the first thing I want to do is get all the BS out of the way before we start talking about this movie. But so I read that it did $15 million the first night, and then I think Friday's box office was pretty big, like the third best this year, behind Guardians and Beauty and the Beast. I think did like $50 million. And not only that, but the RT rating's very high. In fact, right now, I think you told me earlier it was tied for the two best comic book movies. And I know one was Spider-Man 2, and the other one was The Dark Knight.
Right.
So anyway, I actually don't know how I feel about that, and we'll get more into that later on.
It kind of dropped from this morning. Right now it's sitting at 93. It could go back up by the time we drop this podcast on Monday.
Okay.
So it's pretty high. You want to do the initial reaction, or
you go? Okay. Well, mine's going to be very quickly. I did not love this movie. I liked it. I think the franchise now has a lot of potential compared to the Amazing Spider-Man, but I don't think it was up there with Spider-Man 2 or maybe even 1. But I liked the movie, and I liked Tom Holland. So anyway, and we'll go into more positives later, but I just want to give you a very quick reaction.
My initial reaction is I liked the movie a lot. I'm not sure. I still don't know if I loved it. I think there's pluses and minuses to both this movie and Spider-Man 2. So regardless of what the Rotten Tomato rating says, I think they're kind of equal. I could probably find the same amount of faults with this movie that I could find with Spider-Man 2.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just jumping right off the bat, the one thing, even though this is a quote unquote reboot, it doesn't feel like a reboot because they don't tell you the same story over and over again. They
Mm-hmm.
actually tell you the shit that you never seen on screen before. Basically, what Nolan did for Batman Begins or for Batman, this is kind of that. Like you don't see Uncle Ben get shot again. You know, you don't. He doesn't go through
Right.
that shit. He doesn't go through the mourning of Uncle Ben. This has already happened like months ago, and they only say it once, and they don't even say Uncle Ben's name.
Nope.
That's how much they wanted to stay away from that shit, and that part was noticeable and really good for me. I guess I'm starting to talk about the movie, but I guess I'll just keep going. Anyway,
Yeah, keep going.
the thing I liked about the most about this movie is that it felt like a kid. It
Yeah.
felt like a kid, even though I think was 19 or 20 at the time of this filming. But he was hired when he was 16 or 17.
Yeah.
But he's a small kid too. So, I mean, he's shorter than Robert Downey Jr. And Robert Downey Jr. wears like lifts in his shoes to make him like equal to Gwyneth Paltrow.
Right.
So he's still shorter than Robert Downey Jr. And he seems like a kid, and that's in a good way, not like a whiny kid like the stupid bitch from Jurassic Park. But, but in this one, like there's that one iconic scene that's pulled from the comic books where he's trapped underneath the rubble towards the end.
Yes.
And he's like crying, basically, and it's like, oh my god, it's all of a sudden like you're like, yeah, I believe this is a kid, you know. Other than that, it was like you see 30-year-old Tobey Maguire crying and didn't. It seemed like an old man crying. So it wasn't the same thing.
Which isn't pretty.
No, it's not. No, it's ugly crying.
So folks, this is a very, we're going to go into spoiler territory and all that stuff. And also I just want to say, hang in there with us, because after we go over some negatives, because we always like to start with the negatives and then gush about it, a movie later on. But after the negatives, I want to give you a big announcement for our little podcast. So do you want to start with some negatives, or do you want me to start?
Yeah, you go with the negatives.
Okay. So I got a lot, but they're not, they're small, So
more nitpicky.
Yeah, I had a lot of nitpicks, but I also had a lot of positives. So I'll start just very quickly. Like I thought that it's such a stupid thing to say, but I really thought this movie was really predictable, and I think a lot of that had to do with the whoever cut the trailer. I think they showed way too much. I could piece the movie together, and when I watched the movie, I hit every beat. I'm just like, yep. That's exactly the way I thought it was gonna turn out. Secondly, and this was a big one for me, there's not one time where I went, holy shit, that was awesome. And I don't know, like I don't think every movie should have that, but I felt like in this movie, since they're rebooting it, there should have been some sort of wow factor in there, and I didn't get a one. In fact, in the trailer, they showed Spider-Man and Iron Man flying through the city, which that got me so excited watching that at the end of that trailer. And of course, I read somewhere, and of course, when you watch the movie, that isn't in there. And that was kind of the wow factor of that trailer. It was like, oh shit, that's awesome! Like they're both on their way to go save the day or whatever. I thought that was kind of cool, but it's not in the movie at all. In fact, Robert Downey Jr. saves his kid's ass like several times, which makes sense, but still, the CGI was really bad in a lot of parts. I don't know, you were watching on IMAX, I was really paying attention to Spider-Man, and there were so many times where I'm like, yeah, that's not Tom Holland. Like, that looks really fake. The way he was moving around and stuff like that. And then when he would stop and he was the actual actor, I was like, okay, there was no fluidity between him flying all around and then him being, acting as Spider-Man normally with the actual actor there, not CGI character. And also, there's a scene in there where he's fighting the Vulture. It was so difficult to see what was going on because they were zoomed way in, and it reminded me of like the It reminded me of like the Born Supremacy, where the fighting was so close and it was very chaotic. The movement of the camera, or like when they zoomed in on Batman fighting, I hated that. Like once they zoomed out, it looked awesome, but they were too zoomed in on some of the fight sequences of Spider-Man. It was really difficult to see what was going on. Another nitpick, and this is one that we've had since the Marvel movies began, is that the bad guy was pretty weak. I didn't think that his motivation to become bad was great at all. I mean, he looked like a stand-up guy who was like helping his construction people out and helping his family out by, doing these big projects, and then the project gets pulled from underneath him, and he becomes bad like immediately. It was like Anakin becoming Vader, or like in 2 seconds. So I didn't like that. Like, I would have liked to have seen like him get shit on way more than that, to the point where he breaks. Spider-Man's secret doesn't last very long in this movie. He gets outed a couple of times. We'll talk about the end sequence later. I thought the introduction of the super suit was completely unnecessary. He didn't need that fucking thing. I liked him much better when he just has a regular suit. Now he's got a fucking Jarvis type suit, which I don't know how you would hide all those electronics in there. That's like a what the fuck moment for me, is how they put all that shit in that thin suit. It didn't make sense to me. And then in a Marvel world where there's other superheroes, he didn't get a lot of help. I mean, we've had that argument. Again, that's nitpicking big time, because he is in New York, but it's still the Avengers Tower's there. One of the plot points was they were moving out of that tower to go to the new facility, but like he had absolutely no help, and like no one would listen to him. And then another negative for me was Robert Downey Jr., which coincidentally, that was also positive on my list. So he's a negative and a positive. I felt like, some of his utilization was good, and some of it was, you could tell, like they just threw him in there to get people butts in the seats. So, I don't know. Again, those are all little things, and that's pretty much my list. What was, if any negative, what'd you have?
So, just a couple things on what you said for your negatives. The suit, they showed how they fit all the electronics in there when he was pulling out the tracking. It was like all these intricate, like different like nanodes and wires.
Yeah, I guess.
So, but he also has 2 web shooters too that have that stuff in there, and it's got to be controlling his eyes. So there's not a lot that it's as bulky as like the Iron Man suit. They're all shrunk down into his.
Yeah, but like he hits a button. He hits a. It's like reminding me of Back to the Future too. The fucking thing like warms you up. It blows air on you to dry you. It has like
when you a couple gags I didn't really.
When you hit the button, it even the mask like cinched up, and I was like, that was weird. So, like, I don't know, there must be some sort of technology in there that kind of syncs the two things together, because they're separate. But when he pushes the button on the suit, even the neck cinches up. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. I'm trying to figure out the mechanics of it. And obviously, this shit doesn't exist, and they have to make it, I get that. But it's still, that was a little bit unbelievable to me. I was like, I don't buy that. This is
also the same world where there's a Norse god.
Well, yeah, of course, but
so I mean, it was okay for me because I didn't really think about it too much. I kind of figured like just the way Stark built technology in the movies, and the fact that he had like these high tech web shooters and mechanical eyes to focus his basically a spidey sense, and they showed that scene where he was pulling out the tracking thing, and I thought it was okay because he also has a belt too.
Well, okay, so one question before you go to your list is that, okay, so he's got this super suit, but wouldn't it have been better if he just had a normal suit, and then maybe at the end, he gives him something that's a little bit upgraded? Because like it just seemed like unfair or something for him to like right off the bat get this fucking kick-ass suit and do all this shit.
He wasn't supposed to.
Yeah, but
the suit.
Well, he hacked the suit to give him more options, but still, like it still did a lot of shit. He had.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, he didn't really use it. He didn't really need it.
I don't know.
I thought there was one part where I thought like
the little spiders flying around, the parachute thing, which
Yeah.
all that. I'm just like, where the fuck are they hiding all that? Anyway, I just that was just a little annoyances to me. I didn't feel it was necessary, but anyway, sorry.
Well, you knew
You
that
go
was
on your
gonna
negatives.
you was going to happen because it was Iron Man building that suit. So
Yeah.
it's kind of foretelling. And then when you said about the Avengers not helping, because you got to remember this time frame that there are no Avengers right now. They're gone
Oh yeah,
after Civil War.
they've all dispersed. That's right.
Captain America's not going to show up and fucking help him over arms deal that is not world ending. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
so anyway,
that makes sense.
but my nitpicks were that man, it's these are true nitpicks too. So I really liked I liked the callbacks to all the things that were going on. Some of them seemed a little convenient, and and one of the nitpicks I had was like this big secret that Michelle, I don't even know the actress's name, starts with a Z. She was
Zendaya.
yeah, whatever her name is. She was supposed to play Mary Jane, and like, no, her name is Michelle in the movie.
Yeah,
And
I
then at the
hated
very
that.
end, they do like they literally do like the Dark Knight Rises thing, where she says that she's MJ, and I'm like, I don't know about that. And it has nothing to do with the fact that she's whatever she is, like black or half black, whatever. That has
Yeah,
nothing to do with
no,
it. It has everything to do with the
they
fact
pulled
that
a
she was
Star.
so
They pulled a Star Trek 2 on that one. It's like they
like it
said
was
from day
so.
one.
But the character throughout the entire movie, I was thinking in the back of my head, I was like, please don't be MJ because like you're so not her.
I thought she might be Black Cat or something eventually, or
Whatever it was, it does. I just didn't want her to be MJ because of the way that the way that they portrayed her character,
yeah,
and that was not MJ to me. I don't
no,
care like what color they changed her. I just didn't want that character to be MJ.
yeah,
Like so, just because like it wasn't like the heart of MJ was not in her. So I don't remember MJ being like that brilliant either. I mean, they took liberties with things like Flash was a like Indian,
yeah, yeah,
So which I didn't really care about that because it kind of put him on the same level as Peter Parker intellectually, and I guess they thought like the old tired trove of the jock has to fight the nerd or whatever or hate the nerd in the school is kind of
but
not the same.
he was weak too. I mean, I didn't think because like Flash Thompson's supposed to be like a total dick,
Right.
a bully or whatever. And I felt the whole time, I'm like, well, Spider-Man, he's Spider-Man right now. You can kick your ass. Like, I
Yeah,
didn't
but he
feel,
doesn't know that. And
I know,
Flash was
but
definitely the dick in the like if he didn't have those powers, he would basically be bullied every single day from Flash. So
yeah,
I liked the fact that they changed Flash's character for that to update the he's still a bully, but he's a
hmm
bully that's on the same level as Peter is because of the school they go to.
yeah, yeah, that makes
So
sense.
I liked that, but I didn't like the fact that he wasn't as smart as Peter because the only reason why is because Flash Thompson's supposed to be like the all-state football player, right? And he couldn't even make his own like traveling was science team or whatever academic team. He couldn't even make like the starting lineup for that. So that part just bothered me just because Flash Thompson's supposed to be really good at athletics. So that was a nitpick too.
Yeah,
The scene that the thing I had the same nitpick as you with the fight at the end of the movie where the shit was zoomed in right on top of the plane when they were fighting each other.
oh yeah,
And I was watching that shit on IMAX, so that was really difficult for me to follow. I didn't have the same gripe with you about the computer graphics for Spider-Man. The movie looked amazing on in IMAX.
God,
And
okay,
you know me, like I'm pretty visual when it comes to that shit, and like I hate bad special effects.
yeah,
So it seemed I mean it was really good when I saw it, so I didn't pick that up. The Tony Stark thing, I said from day one when we heard about this movie that I was nervous about Robert Downey Jr. coming into it,
yeah,
and I think they kind of towed the line, but they never crossed it. So I was really relieved about that it would make sense because of how their relationship started.
right,
That he would kind of be a mentor. but he was basically a hands-off type mentor, because in the other side of it, he's dealing with the aftermath of Civil War. So that's why they're moving upstate New York. So,
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
but he was in it just enough. I'm sure there's other nitpicks I'm forgetting, but they were kind of small. Um, I can't think of any major ones right now. Those are the ones that stood out the most to me. Like, I kind of like shook my head a little. Like, the nitpicks I remembered are the parts where I shook my head, like the MJ and the Flash scene.
Yeah.
Anytime Flash was, when I found out Flash wasn't on the first, on the starting lineup for the academic team.
Yeah, they kind of put a lot of stock in Peter. Like, he's like this ultra genius in the whole
I
school.
mean, he is in the comic books. He is. So.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, okay. So those are all your negatives, in a nutshell.
I think so, but I'm sure I'm going to come up with something like when we're talking about the positives.
Oh yeah, that's fine. So anyway, before we move on, this is a huge announcement for our podcast. So uh, we reached out to San Francisco Comic Con because we wanted to podcast there, and they accepted us. So we're going to have our very own panel. So we're actually going to podcast live. And I think this is the second time we've done that.
Well, it's not going to be
technically though. It's just
it's
us
podcasting live, but it's not like we're not going to be broadcasting it live.
No.
It'll still be released on Monday.
Yeah, but we have our own panel. We're going to be podcasting in front of a live audience, whoever shows up, and but it should be interesting. But that's San Francisco Comic Con, and I think it's September 2nd and 3rd. Oh yeah, right.
Well, first to the 3rd, I think the Comic Con lasts.
Yes,
but we're going on the 2nd Saturday at 10:00. So if you're in the
Yes.
San Francisco area, come on by.
Buy
Once
a
again,
ticket.
once again we got this gig with the guy never listening to our podcast. So maybe we just keep that trend.
Yeah.
going. We'll be the most popular podcast nobody's listening to.
Exactly. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, as long as we get sponsors.
Anyway,
All right, so our positives.
yes.
One of the positives I had.
Well, that he's a kid.
Yeah,
he's
it really
15.
felt like he was a kid.
Yeah, he's 15. Tom Holland is amazing. Athletically, acting wise, he's fantastic. He's Peter Parker.
Yeah,
for sure.
he by far, like, I never felt like, other than the stereotypical nerd things that they put God, what's his name, Tobey Maguire through. Like, it's still he never felt like Peter Parker. He had maybe one or two like snippy remarks to like villains, but never really did any of that.
Right.
And then they kind of got it right with Andrew Garfield, and they kind of shied away from it. But this one seems like the most realistic possible, mainly because they wrote it from the point of view of a 17-year-old or 14-year-old kid.
Yes.
What age he's playing in it. And he looks like a 14-year-old kid, even though he's like freaking jacked as hell because he's Spider-Man. But and that's the other thing too. The positive thing is we said that you don't see Uncle Ben get shot again, and you don't see him get bit by the spider again.
Right.
It doesn't happen.
It's barely mentioned.
Yeah. They definitely made a conscious effort to make sure that they didn't go over the same shit. They really came from the outside of like, you've already seen that movie, so we're not going to waste an hour and 20 minutes to get to this point.
Right. Yeah, they didn't waste a lot of time. The beginning video was really cool. It was like a 3 or 4 minute sequence where he's narrating when he went to Germany to fight against the Avengers. That was I thought that was pretty cool because it
I liked Happy Hope.
callbacks.
I liked Happy being back.
He was
Favreau,
funny.
missed
He
him.
was awesome.
I love John Favreau.
Yeah, he's so awesome, and he plays the liaison, essentially, between Parker and Iron Man. So like he contacts Happy once in a while to talk to him. So one of the things that I read about when they were making this movie, they had mentioned John Hughes' name. He was a big director, writer in the 80s.
Right.
A lot of our favorite comedies, kids, coming of age stories, and all that. And so I did notice right away, watching this movie, that it's very teen angsty, very John Hughesian. But I don't think it quite got to the level where I thought it would, it should be in order to transcend a comic book movie. It still was a comic book movie. It didn't quite get into the, I don't know,
He is it's
pretty
funny that you
close
said
though.
that. It's funny that you said that because if you can pull away all the times that he's Spider-Man, there's not a lot of movie
Right,
here
right.
because it's not like the Christopher Nolan Batmans where Batman only shows up when he's needed. This kid is dying to be Spider-Man every single minute of every single day, so he's in the suit a lot.
Yeah, like right after school, just boom, suit starts running around.
So it kind of played a double-edged sword for me, where in the sense that if you could watch just the interaction of the high school kids, there was a little bit of John Hughesian type stuff there.
Mm-hmm.
But it made sense if you're a 14-year-old kid and you can do all these things, and I mean, walking would be so boring for you. I mean, why would you not want to web swing through New York City every single day, right? Like, I would want to be in that suit all the time too.
Yeah, no doubt. And they did that little thing with the house party that kind of went nowhere. I
Oh, he
thought,
fucks up a lot in this too.
uh,
It reminded me of Casino Royale for
mhm.
James Bond, but obviously James Bond's a lot older, and he fucks and Peter Parker in this fucks up so much because he's a 14-year-old kid. I mean, he destroys a lot of property in that one chase scene
Oh yeah, he
because he
does.
doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. He
Yeah,
has no idea, and the people are laughing because like he couldn't web swing anywhere because he was in the middle of a park and there was no trees or anything. And
yeah,
it was funny when he was running across the golf course, but at the same time I was thinking it's like, oh, this is pretty brilliant. It's subconsciously telling you that this kid doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. Like
right,
he's not ready for any of this. But
exactly.
even though he keeps like every other 14-year-old kid, like when you were 14 and I was 14,
You
I
knew
think I knew
everything.
yeah. So picture the fact that you think you know everything and you have these powers.
Yeah, yeah,
You're gonna do
exactly.
exactly what the fuck he did. I would do the exact same thing.
You just like run. You run out of
Although I
room.
would have showed, although I would have showed up at Liz's party to show up Flash. I would have done that.
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't. I was really surprised that he didn't do something and then regret it later on. Because like he used his powers for something stupid to get over
Right.
one on Flash and then feel bad about it later. Like I thought something like that was going to happen, but he literally shows up to the party and turns around and leaves. And I was like, oh man, they've kind of missed an opportunity there. So,
So
but,
actually, one of the things I wanted to ask you about
mhm.
when you were going through your negatives is the reveal. Did you? Okay,
Oh,
let's talk about Michael Keaton.
Okay, yeah,
Let's talk about Michael Keaton first. I
okay,
love Michael Keaton in this.
I do
I
too.
loved him in it.
I do
Loved him
too.
in it. My favorite part was when you had been seeing him for the whole movie. He was just the villain, and I actually didn't get the same sense as you did. I actually really liked this villain a lot, and I was trying to debate whether or not it was because it was Michael Keaton, and I love Michael Keaton so much. But I actually liked him because he was such a he was all he really did was like he was just like in Sons of Anarchy, like selling AK-47s out of his like warehouse, and that's the level of villain that he was, and it was great because that for Spider-Man is he's not ready for anything else. He wasn't like if you put him against the Kingpin, he would have died instantly. Would have died. He would have been murdered. But the fact that he's facing the Vulture as his first person, because it's just like, again, they're like the Sons of Anarchy people. He's basically Jax with wings. But I loved how evil he was, and then all of a sudden, when he shows up in the reveal of that he's Liz's dad the whole time. Wait, it
Hmm.
is Liz, right? That's her name, right?
Yes, yes.
Liz's dad. I thought it was like, oh, I didn't even see that. I didn't see that coming. Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, you did. I
Oh
didn't see it
yeah.
coming.
Yeah, I knew like I knew that probably a good 20 minutes before that scene, but when he was at the door and the door was about to open,
What gave it away?
they played it up. The fact that he hadn't run into the guy yet, because it reminded me of the first Spider-Man with the Green Goblin and his friend and all that stuff, and but only the audience knew. I mean, we knew it from the very beginning who the bad guy was, or
Hmm.
who the bad guy was related to. This one, it's like there were nothing connecting the Vulture to him except for when he did a job, and then he would go and pick him up. So I'm like, there's something up. He's gonna be related to somebody that Parker knows, and Liz was the only logical explanation other than Zendaya, but she was just kind of a background character. So, you know, and then right before the door opens, they kind of paused, and I was like, I turned to my son, and I'm like, watch, it's Michael Keaton, watch. And it opened the door, and there he was. I was like, I fucking knew it, you know. But it was cool though. Like it wasn't like completely predictable, but it was cool. Like it kind of made this tension, I think, way better in that movie than in Spider-Man. You know, when they're all sitting around Thanksgiving dinner and all that shit.
Right,
That was a
yeah.
really weird, awkward scene.
But that's due to Michael Keaton. Like
This was way better. I mean, it was.
way.
Oh my god! You see the look on you know, on Tom Holland's face. He was just like, "Fuck," you know. You gotta be kidding me, you know. And you could tell Michael Keaton was just like, he's like, "Are you all right, son?" You know, like you've seen a ghost.
Well, they hit it so much where like Liz's name is said in the movie. It's not Toombs.
No, they
It's
didn't.
never explained why
they-
it's different.
They never said. They never said her last name.
No, it was Liz Allen.
Liz Allen.
Yeah, they never
Oh,
say
so-
Michelle's. They never say Michelle's name.
Yeah, they never say Michelle's name either. I don't know. I figured it out pretty early on that
I didn't
that was
pick up
going
on
to
that,
happen.
and I'm usually pretty good at that stuff, but I didn't pick up on that. But I loved every scene after that because okay. So what I was trying to say was like when he shows up at the door, all of a sudden it's Michael Keaton from like Mr. Mom,
Yeah.
you know, right? Like I was like, oh my god, and I'm not saying that as a negative thing, like he's rehashing a character. I'm just saying it reminded me of a different character.
Yeah, totally.
and that's a good thing because he's playing dad. You know, like if you walked, like he was actually a pretty cool dad.
Yeah.
When Peter showed up, and it wasn't until he found out that he was Spider-Man that, and in the car, he fucking changed from dad to like I'm gonna fucking kill everybody.
Oh man, that was menacing. That was scary.
And I was like, I was like, I love Michael Keaton. All I kept thinking about during that entire scene was, oh my god, I love this guy. He can do anything.
Well, and
And
it was pretty plausible. Like in the car scene when they're all three drive into the prom, like you see Michael Keaton working things out in his head as they're talking, and he figures out who that is. Like you
Right.
see the expression on his face, like, oh shit, that's. So now they both know who each other are, but they did it in such a good way. Like I didn't know how they were going to, you know, do the reveal. Like in this first Spider-Man, it's because he got cut by one of Goblin's, you know, throwy knives or whatever. So, but this was good. I liked how he kind of, and you saw his expression, like how he figured it out. Then he's like, "Hey, I need to have a man-to-man talk with this guy," and I was like, "Oh shit, here it comes." You know, here comes. He's gonna threaten this kid, this poor little kid, 15-year-old kid.
Yeah. So the first time in a long time too, I think Marvel had like a really good villain in the movie.
You think so?
I do. I actually do think so. He's not like on Loki's level because Hiddleston is just so really good as Loki.
He's my favorite.
But I mean, you don't really know too much about the Vulture. You know, he's not a major Spider-Man villain. And I thought like he, you know, when I remember reading in the comic books or watching cartoons, I was like, oh, it's the Vulture. Who gives a shit? You know, who gives a fuck? It's the Vulture. But I thought they did a good job with this one, putting it on the level that he could actually hold himself up to.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
'cause I guess you don't think he was a good enough villain to equal Peter Parker.
I don't.
or
Well,
Spider-Man?
I thought he did. Okay, so maybe I should backtrack a little bit. I think that when I was watching it, or after I watched it, I started really thinking about it. I'm like, I think the greatest villain was Peter himself. So the Vulture was merely a guy doing his thing, and Peter Parker was trying to thwart it. And obviously, Michael Keaton, from flying around on that shit for several years, he was really good. Like he defeated Spider-Man, like pretty much beat the shit out of him. And he didn't finish him off because he was like greedy for that shit in the plane, you know, for Tony Stark's plane. I mean, he could have finished Spider-Man off right then and there, or tied him up, did something to him, and then went and got the stuff. But instead, he just dropped him and then went and got the stuff, and then he got beat up. So I think more. I think he's more of like just he to me he wasn't like a main boss. I want to say like Spider-Man was more the villain in it than he was, and as far as like he was defeating himself. He wasn't. I don't know. I think he was too cocksure or something. He was too egotistical, or he thought he could do these things, and yet he needed more time and more practice. Like Tony was just like, "You're not ready," but he was like, "No, I am ready." You know what I mean? And it wasn't until the very end when he was like crushed with all the cement and he was ready to like pretty much suffocate and die in there, and he was about ready to give up, and that's when he manned up. Like he finally like said, finally really believed that he can do this, and he ends up out on top. But he was kind of his own worst enemy throughout the movie,
He
and
was.
so the
Well,
Vulture.
14-year-olds are.
Yeah, so the Vulture wasn't on Loki level, but you're right. I mean, he did what he needed to do. He needed to be the bad guy that this movie needed to be. Now, from here, you need to get someone more on the level, like a Doc Ock or somebody that can really have the potential of messing with his life and be really scary, on that front. But yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, for what he was, he did a really good job, and I love Michael Keaton too. So I could be totally biased as well, but I just felt like on the pantheon of villains, it still hasn't quite gotten to this like level of like, holy shit, that guy is genuinely scary. Like
No, there wasn't. Well, nobody really in the Marvel universe really is. Like even like Ego in Guardians of the
no,
Galaxy is
he's
a fucking planet,
yeah.
and you still weren't really scared
Well,
of him.
Thanos,
That speech,
Thanos has
that
got to be
speech,
the guy.
that speech in the car that Keaton was giving to Peter Parker, that Toombs was giving to Peter Parker, where he tells him not to mess with him, and you heard like a one sentence from that line. But when you watch the whole thing in context, that's pretty scary. I don't remember feeling the same way when Loki was being bad.
It is, but see, the other issue is that he's a blue collar worker. He's just trying to get by, make it in the world, and pay his employees and make sure his family lives and all that stuff. So he's not as scary as like someone like so Spider-Man was like in his 30s. I think the Vulture wouldn't have had that speech with him. He'd just be like, "I'm going to kill you right now."
That's why it makes.
Yeah, but because
that's
he's a
why
kid,
the 14-year-old kid, like that's
yeah,
why it happens.
he just threatens him with a line, like, "Hey, I'm going to fucking kill you and your family." But he doesn't listen to him. He still goes after him.
So what'd you think of him not telling Scorpion at the end of the movie? Oh, spoilers, by the way. Scorpion's in this movie. There's a lot of
is it
Easter eggs.
Scorpion or is it? Oh, so who's? Okay, yeah. The guy from Better Call Saul. Yeah, that guy. I thought one of the guys was supposed to be Prowler, but I think maybe that's who's the guy that that wanted to be Miles Morales? Who is that guy?
No, that's not him. Donald Glover.
Donald Glover's supposed to be somebody too in the future, but I don't remember who he's supposed to be.
No,
but
he's just the uncle. He's just the uncle of Miles Morales, actually.
Oh, that's who he is. Okay. Well, there was some guy that some name popped up, and I was like, oh, that guy's the Prowler. But then they had like the Shocker, which that changed hands a couple times, and then you had those are second, third tier bad guys. But yeah, Scorpion. I think he didn't tell him because he has something planned. There's got to be something planned that he's going to do to come after Peter, because it's kind of like a personal vendetta.
I thought it was that he saved his life because he spared Peter because he saved his daughter in the car.
Yeah,
that's what he said. So I took it as he is not going to tell people who Peter Parker is.
Okay.
Because he saved his life.
Okay, I could buy that, I guess, because that was his MO from earlier. You're right. He kind of established that. Yeah, I totally forgot about that. And then, but before that, I mean, we get to see. I thought it was pretty cool when like he's gonna induct him into the Avengers, and I'm sitting there going like, nah, he's not gonna take it. He's not gonna take that job. And then he like says, no, Stark, I'm not. I want to just be a neighborhood Spider-Man for now. And he leaves, and then like Stark opens the door, and there's all that press in there, and I was like, oh shit, he was gonna give it to him. That's crazy.
That's kind of funny because I felt like I was like, did they just like not tease Civil War, but give a shout out to Civil War?
You mean Secret War or Civil War?
No, Civil War, because
Okay.
there's that iconic panel where he's standing next to Tony Stark as Spider-Man.
Oh, he pulls the
And
mask off.
right, and in this version, Tony was just going to tell who Peter Parker is because he was going to live within the Avengers facility.
Right. Oh yeah,
You know?
that's right.
So
that's right.
I didn't. So I thought that's what I picked up as. I was like, oh, that's a nice callback to Civil War.
That's
I
good.
didn't mind seeing the Iron Suit. I thought the Iron Suit looked pretty good.
No, I thought
Iron
that
Spider suit.
that surprised me. I didn't think I was going to see that. I saw that. I was like, oh, dude, that's so cool.
It didn't surprise. It surprised me up until the part where they're walking down the hallway and there's a giant A that looks like a vault. I'm like, that's where the suit is. So right up until that point, I wasn't expecting it. But then when they walked down the hallway and I saw that vault, I was like, they're going to reveal the Iron Spider suit here.
but yet when he knocks on the door, you didn't think Michael Keaton would be on the other side.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see where your head's at.
It's all about the tech.
Yeah, totally. No, that suit looked pretty sick. I was like, oh man, like
Yeah.
he did it. He did it.
That's gonna come out. That's got to be in Infinity War. It has to be.
Yeah. Oh, I imagine so.
Because if he doesn't, he's so fucking dead.
Yeah.
He has no idea. Like if he had a hard time with Vulture, he has no idea what the fuck he's in for Thanos.
Oh my God, yeah, that'd be really messed up.
Let's move on to Marissa Tomei. I loved her in this.
I love her.
I loved her in this. I loved her before too.
Yeah.
But I loved her in this because she literally is that cool aunt.
Yes.
She's no longer like Grandma Aunt May.
And
she is an aunt.
And instead of keeping the secret, it kind of made sense. Although I don't know for her to find out the way she found out, but
spoilers. But there is the very ending of the movie. Aunt May pulls out the best line. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but Aunt May has the best line I think in the movie that never gets finished.
Yes, yeah, it's great. That was really good. That got a big reaction from the crowd.
Yeah, mine too.
It was great.
Yeah.
It was great.
I loved how they played up the fact that it was Marissa Tomei, and let's not hide the fact that she's like still very good looking. And
yeah, they toned her down, but she's still good looking, toned down.
Yeah. She got like what, free dessert or something at the Chinese restaurant. And
yeah, that's like, right.
And then, but the very beginning is Tony Stark like telling her to wear something sexy or something.
Wear something skimpy. That was awesome. The other thing that happened all the way throughout the movie that I thought was genius is they kept showing Captain America these like PSAs with Captain America talking about like, you know, you're in you got in trouble and now you're in Saturday school, whatever it was. I can't remember
Detention.
what it was. Detention. And a lot of callbacks to John Hughes movies too, by the way, and 80s references. Like that was a Breakfast Club. They did a Ferris Bueller's Day Off reference. It was all over the place.
So interesting. So that Captain America is in all those videos, right?
Yeah.
Well, the principal. Do you know who the principal is?
No.
He's the grandson of one of the Howling Commandos for Captain America, the Asian dude.
Oh,
it's the same? It's the same actor though. It's the same actor though.
I didn't
so he's
catch
playing his own grandson.
That's so cool. Was there any memorabilia
scene,
in there?
Yeah, there's a scene where he's talking to Peter. Because I'm like looking at this guy. I'm like, where the hell have I seen this guy? Because you see him early on in the movie, and then you see him in the principal's office, and right above the filing cabinet is like shit from like World War II, and it's him, and it looks like him, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, how can that be him? And I'm thinking, I'm looking through the cast, names and stuff like that, or the character names that he played, and I was like, oh my god, that's the same fucking name as the other guy from Captain America: First Avenger, but he's playing. So it's the same actor, but he's just playing his own grandson. I
fucking
so
love that.
The pictures above the filing cabinet are of his grandfather in World War II.
Oh, I love that. That's fantastic. That's kick-ass.
It threw me completely off, and it threw me completely off when I saw a picture of him in World War II on the filing cabinet, and that's when I was like, wait a minute, something doesn't make sense. So I tried to keep. So as soon as I got back home, I started looking up who he was, and I was like, wait a minute, he was in First Adventure, and then I checked the names
I
of the
did,
character.
dude. That totally went right over my head. That is super cool, super cool.
There's a lot of Easter eggs in this movie. You want to go over the Easter eggs now?
I don't have. Do you have any written down?
Some of the Easter eggs?
Yeah, I don't have anything written down. I guess I can go from my head. Uh,
Well, okay. So one of the Easter eggs that we talked about is the panel. I forget who did it, but there's a panel in the Amazing Spider-Man comic book where Peter is being crushed by rubble.
yes.
That's one of them.
Yep.
Then in the same sequence right before he lifts himself out of it, there's another comic book panel, and this one really stood out to you. I mean, this one just looked different than any other shot in the movie,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, "That's a comic book panel right there." And it's that famous panel sometimes when like Peter Parker in the comic books, you can't show enough expression because his mask is on,
Right.
so they kind of fade the mask out on half the face, even though he's still wearing it. It's like even though he still has the mask on, in order to show the audience who's reading the comic book how dire the situation is or what Peter's face looks like underneath as he's saying these lines,
Uh huh.
they'll paint like half of it just normal face
Oh.
with the other half like
Oh.
mask. So that was like pulled right out of the comic books there too.
What about oh, I noticed, and this was so freaking cool, but the very beginning, the music was the original Spider-Man theme song from
Yes,
the
there was
19
lots of beats in there.
yeah, 1960s or 70s Spider-Man cartoon, and it was done so well. It wasn't like that weird throwaway thing in the
Right.
Sam Raimi, movie. Um,
There's
yeah, I
a lot
really
of
like that.
the school that they went to is like a smart school. So there's
Wasn't Betty Brant in that movie too? In the
yeah,
movie?
she was. Yeah, she was played by originally what's her name? In the Raimi Spider-Mans.
Yeah, because she was played by Elizabeth Banks, but she
Right.
is eventually going to work at Daily Bugle, which is where he's eventually going to work at some
So the
point.
first time you see Peter in one of the classes, you see like Albert Einstein and all the pictures at the top.
Yeah.
So like I knew like to look at all the pictures. All the way to the far right was Bruce Banner's picture.
Nice. Yeah, I didn't catch that. That's awesome.
Let me think. What else? I'm trying to think off the top of my head.
There's a lot of people, like his friends and stuff. Like Ned, I had completely forgotten, but Ned is his watchtower oracle. What did they call him in the movie? The chair. They call him. Yeah. That's actually in the comic books as well. Um, and then of course Donald Glover is the uncle of Miles Morales, which
But I didn't even know that. Oh, the AI, Peter's AI is Karen, who I found out later was Jennifer Connelly. Well,
oh
do you know who
that's
Jennifer Connelly's married to?
to Jarvis, Paul Bettany.
Right, in real life.
Oh, oh my God, that's amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I fucking love that.
I'm trying to think what else. Those are like
Those
I
are the
didn't get
big
I didn't
ones.
well I don't know her voice very well. I don't know Jennifer Connelly's voice very well, and a friend of mine told me that, and I was like, wait a minute, who the fuck is she married to? Fucking
Yep.
Jarvis.
That's so crazy. He's like, hey, I got an idea for you guys to get a voice in the suit, and yeah, they choose. That's too cool. And of course, the Iron Spider suit, which I can't wait to see what that's going to do later on.
The Sokovia Accords were mentioned, like
Yep.
during one of the classes.
Oh, the history class. Yeah.
Pepper Potts is back, which I thought
Yeah.
was awesome.
Yeah, she looked good. She looked
Yeah,
good.
and they didn't miss a beat. Like it just looks like they're back together. It looked, that seemed pretty good.
Yeah. No, it's pretty. I mean, this movie had a lot. I mean, it definitely. You're like, okay, Spider-Man's in the MCU. Like he's solidified in there. So I really enjoyed that, and I hope that Sony continues to do that. I read that he will be back in 2 years with his own standalone movie, but he's in the Infinity War next May, so that's going to be pretty cool.
Right. Yeah, he's in 5 total Spider-Man movies, and the Spider-Man movie, the next Spider-Man movie is actually supposed to take place right after
Infinity
the
War.
Infinity War. Yeah. So,
Okay.
So
Oh man, this is a great
we're
time to
gonna
be alive, man. It's such a fun time.
We're gonna have to talk about the Infinity War before it releases because there's a lot of stuff in there that's different from the comic books. That is major, possible major, obviously major spoilers. But like when they fight Thanos in the comic books, it's all of Marvel fighting,
Yes,
and
and
they
a
don't
lot
have
of
all
and a
of
lot of
Marvel.
lot of people die too.
A ton of people die in gruesome ways.
Yeah,
Pretty gruesome.
I'm kind of looking forward to that though. That because I mean, they very rarely kill anyone off, so it's going to be kind of interesting how that's going to work. And yeah, I mean, shoot, like we did with Civil War last year, where we went back and reread the comics, and then not the whole like 150 issues or whatever it was, just the main story. That was really cool, and then to actually watch the movie and try to compare the two was kind of neat. So we definitely have to do that for Infinity Wars next year. I'll get all those comics together and start reading them again.
All right, so let's do our ratings now.
All right.
Let's you go first with your diversity rating.
Uh, well, I want to say plethora because there was a lot of diversity in this movie, female, ethnicity, uh, on many levels, and it wasn't just like a bunch of white people. So I mean, I can go down and name all the characters and whatnot, but I thought it was a plethora.
I thought it was a plethora too, except for one thing.
Hmm.
What I didn't like, but I did like at the same time, was that Keaton is white, but his wife and his child are both. Well, obviously she's mixed,
Hmm.
but if that is her biological father, because they have different last names, but the mother and the wife is black, so it was like, okay, because the villain is the main villain, why not just make him black?
Right.
you
Yeah.
know,
I kind of felt that way too.
and
I'm
like
like,
it almost felt like you made Liz black so that you could hide the reveal even longer. I'm not saying they did that. I'm just saying like
but
it
but
just
but
felt
that's
like
an
one way to do
interesting
that.
theory. It was an interesting theory because it didn't throw me off in that I was kind of half expecting him to because we never met. Did we meet the mother earlier in the movie? I
Yeah,
don't remember.
no, never met the mother.
See,
Not until he
see,
shows up to pick her up
see,
for prom or homecoming.
if they really wanted to throw you off, they would have showed the mother in the beginning. So you're like, oh, she's has her parents are black, but they didn't. They didn't do that. So it didn't throw me off. I know this sounds really weird. This conversation we're having, but it's like anyway. I felt like I. I kind of felt the same way. I'm like, why did they just get Idris Elba, or why didn't they just get a white, a white mom, and then maybe she could have been adopted, whatever the thing is. But you know, it's kind of like they tried to do that with Fantastic Four as well. They did the old switcheroo
Yeah,
there, which I didn't
yeah,
felt
but they
worked.
did.
But
Yeah, it didn't work. This one, it felt odd. Not that you can't have an interracial couple. That's not what I'm saying.
no,
I'm just saying like it as far as like a story or a plot point to hide the reveal, it seemed rather convenient
yeah,
that his
I
daughter was like
agree.
really black and or like it mixed whatever. Again, it's never established because they
Yeah,
have different last names. That's why I keep saying it. Because you know his name is Toombs, his last name is Toombs,
yeah.
and you
Maybe it
know
was a
her last name
stepdad.
is Allen.
Maybe a
Yeah, I
stepdad.
don't
I don't
know.
know.
But the
But
point is,
yeah,
it just didn't feel right. To me, it felt like a way to like hide the reveal.
yeah, I agree. I agree.
But again, everything else was I guess plethora except for the two main characters in the movie again, or the three main characters are all white.
Right.
But it is Spider Man, so I did want to see. I think we mentioned a while back. Yeah, I'd like to see Miles Morales and an Asian Hulk, but I wanted Marvel to get a crack at Peter Parker.
Yes,
That's
I
all.
did. I did
That's
too.
the only reason that I was like, if they were gonna reboot the whole thing again, like Sony was gonna reboot the whole fucking thing again, and they didn't do Miles Morales, I'd be pissed. But
But
just
listen,
because it went back to Marvel, I wanted to see their
there's
their version of Marvel,
but
Spider Man.
they're setting that up though, dude. They're setting that up for Miles.
Well, his uncle's already in the movie, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
coming.
But he will be around because Tom Holland can only be a kid for so long, and then something will happen to like he's gonna kind
Well,
of
Miles Morales is younger, I think, than
yeah
Peter Parker was
yes yeah you'd
in
have
the
to
comic
be
books.
you'd have to be Like, just imagine, like, maybe right now he's like 6 or 7 years old. So,
Yeah,
and like,
it's
so
gonna
in like,
happen soon.
yeah. So, yeah, it's just a matter of like, how did Miles Morales become the new
I don't
Spider-Man?
remember.
He
I
wasn't
think he
bit.
was bit this. I don't. I honestly don't remember.
He wasn't bit the same way. Maybe it was something else that happened to him.
I can't
Man,
remember.
now I gotta figure that out because I can't remember either. But anyway,
All right, your full rating now. How many
uh,
chainsaws?
uh, I'll, I'm gonna give it a gracious 4 chainsaws.
Hmm. Well,
Maybe. I
after
mean,
everything you said, I thought you would have given it a 3.
no, 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 no. I don't think it was a horrible movie. I just think that
Well, 3 is not horrible.
no, three is like 60%. That's not good. I didn't want to give it that. But see, okay, the RT rating to me is way too high. I felt like it's in the mid 80s, and so that's why I'm going to give it a 4 because that's a 4 is like a straight up 80%. So there you go. Now I'm being a little gracious.
I think I'm going to give it a 4 lightsabers, and I think I would keep it. I would borderline 89-90% for this movie.
Okay.
I didn't get the same feeling I got walking out of Spider-Man that I did for The Dark Knight. Like that's how I put movies like the comic book movies
But
out
that
there.
could
The same feeling.
right, but that could be coming. Like I didn't expect this movie to be like blow my shit up, but I expect the next one to be like that.
Mm.
Like I really do. I expect like this one was like Batman Begins, but I expect the next one to be, you know, not. I don't know if anything's ever going to be at the level of the Dark Knight because I remember
Well,
that whole movie in the Dark Knight. The whole movie, I was sitting there watching that movie. I still remember it to this day. How excited and how like the whole movie I was just blown away by. I haven't felt like that in a movie in a really long time. So Spider-Man has a lot to live up to, just like The Last Jedi, just
Civil
like
War came close to that for me.
oh yeah, yeah. Civil War was and Winter Soldier were fucking fantastic. You know, they were great. But this movie was kind of like it's like okay, like cool. He's introduced.
Well, I'm a
let's
little
get
nervous
going.
for the next movie. And here's why. I'm nervous for the next movie because it's supposed to take place right after Infinity War, and you can't do what fucking like DC TV does, where like they go out and fight like a world-ending type of situation, and nobody mentions it again for the rest of the like the series.
Well,
Like so, like
I
you
hope they
can't have the
mention it.
second Spider-Man,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm afraid of. Is that, I mean, you remember like
You
Spider-Man
mean
2.
are you afraid you're going to get an Iron Man 3?
Or yeah. Like I'm afraid that no, I'm afraid you're to get an Iron Man 2, in the sense that like because you have to they were trying to build a universe, right? They were trying to
Mhm.
build all this other shit. So a lot of that like played into the the major plot points of problems I had with that movie. I'm afraid this one because they're gonna have to deal with the aftermath of Infinity War.
Yeah.
So much so because it's the first movie right after Infinity War. So you're gonna have to show, and they already said it takes place right afterwards. So you're going to have him deal with everything of that. And what I really don't want is like in an Infinity War 2.5,
No, no,
where
I don't want.
half the movie he's dealing with the traumatization of whoever died in those movies. So that's why I'm nervous
Well,
about the
if
next Spider-Man
it
movie.
was, yeah, I mean, if they do that, they should do that, but just not the first hour and a half of the movie. They should do something like he should be down and like pretty much down and out in the first portion of that movie where you have a villain now taking advantage of the fact that everyone got wiped out and all the shit's
Well,
gone
that's how
down.
you have a Sinister Six show up where
Yes.
Spider-Man's not ready for any of this after defending the Earth from
Yeah.
Thanos.
They come in to take
Because
advantage.
you could do it if you do it like this movie did, where they just don't acknowledge like Uncle Ben was killed again and he didn't get bitten by a spider, like he got bit by a spider. Like, don't show any of that. Have it in the sense of like he's dealing with it, but dealing with it like a normal person would, where it doesn't consume 50 minutes of film,
Right.
where it really feels like a next Infinity War movie.
Yeah. I don't want a downer Spider-Man movie. Maybe like 10, 15 minutes, something.
Well, he's gonna have to deal with the death of somebody or
Yeah.
some people.
Yeah, and he's
So
a
it's
kid.
gonna, yeah.
You know?
So it's gonna affect him in some way or another. Just stay true to the fact that it's gonna affect a kid.
Yeah. No, I agree. Well, it'll be interesting. Next year, I mean, we still got Thor Ragnarok left this year. Then next year, we've got just a shit ton of movies, Marvel
And we
movies.
also have Justice League 2. which
No.
I'm more looking forward to Thor Ragnarok than I am
Yeah,
Justice
and that's
League.
and that's only because of the track record. It has nothing to do with it's just the fact that Wonder
Considering
Woman.
Thor is the weakest of all the Marvel the Marvel
Uh-huh.
cinematic universe,
Yeah.
the fact that I'm more excited about Thor than I'm about Batman, Flash, Wonder
I
Woman,
know, man.
Superman,
It looks like
Aquaman.
they're going all out this time on the Thor movie too. They're just like, let's just get wacky. Let's build
Well, you can do that with Thor because he's
yeah.
not a human.
Yeah, he's not from here. He's in the same world as Guardians of the Galaxy. So
Kind of, yeah.
that's one way to kind of mesh the two things together a little bit, or to bring
Well, yeah,
Guardians in a little bit.
Thor Dark World spent way too much time on Earth.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. But whatever. This one's going to take place. It's a space adventure, buddy movie. I'm stoked for that movie. I can't wait.
Yeah.
And then we get we get Black Panther. Then we get Infinity War, and then we get Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Well, before that, we get The Last Jedi.
Well, yeah, shit. I was going on Marvel, but yeah, you're right. Which I didn't get any trailers in front of Spider-Man. I was one of the first times I think ever that's ever happened to me. Unless I'm watching IMAX, sometimes they don't show any trailers. They just go right into the movie.
They only show the trailer that they're gonna have in IMAX. Back in the day, there wasn't a lot of IMAX releases.
Yeah, it would just go right into the movie, right after the.
Yeah, because there weren't a lot of
commercial.
previews for other movies that were going to be there.
Yeah.
I think for like the only commercials we ever got were like, this is how much IMAX has changed. When you went to go see an actual IMAX movie, like Harry Potter, the last two Harry Potters, the last two Matrixes, those were special things that the studios didn't do.
Right.
They only did it for like big events. And I remember The Dark Knight was a major one I did. Opening night for that. Even Spider-Man 2, I think I went to go see in IMAX. It was different because you never got to see that before.
Like Lord of the Rings.
Avatar. But
Lord
every
of the Rings, yeah.
right, yeah. Every single time though, those movies would come out, they would be in the theaters for a shit ton of time. And the only previews that you would get would be the nature IMAX movies, like the National Geographic type movies.
Yeah.
Those were the only ones you ever got. Like, so to give you an idea of how much has changed, that people rely on IMAX because people realize that people will go to IMAX. I can't remember the last time I saw one of those type of trailers. What did I have in front of my movie? I had Dunkirk, I had Justice League, I had The Last Jedi.
God, how did The Last Jedi play on IMAX?
I've seen ever since the trailer popped. I think I've been to the movies in IMAX 3 times. Every single time, it's like watching it the first time because it's just gigantic. It looks so fucking good. Let's see. Yeah, I think those were the three movies I got. Oh, Valerian. No, did I see Valerian? No, I didn't see Valerian.
Oh, speaking of which, yeah, so in a couple of weeks we get Dunkirk and Valerian. I'm going to end up watching both, and
I'm not going to see Valerian unless the ratings come out really well.
Yeah,
I got to pick and choose, and if I got to pick and choose, like somebody like Luke Besson or Christopher Nolan, I'm going to choose Christopher Nolan every time.
Yeah, no, for sure. He's got just a tremendous track record. I cannot wait to see that movie. It's very exciting, and
it's going to be the one. He's got to stay on a path too. This is one of those. Yeah. You're not going to get like a top at the end of the movie. You're not going to get like, okay, what the hell just happened at the end of the movie? You're going to get an actual definitive ending. Like, he can't be a fucking lazy ass. He has to give us an ending, or the ending is implied because it's historical.
Right. No, I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does with something historical like that. And then, of course, before that, we get War of the Planet of the Apes, which I'm so fucking excited. Excited.
That's next week, I think.
Yep. So that'll be our
next week coming up when this drops. It'll be this week.
Yep, that'll be our next review.
Oh, I fucking can't wait.
Yeah, man, it's an exciting time. But anyway, yeah, so that's Spider-Man Homecoming. We both liked it, both enjoyed it. We want to see more from it. It's got a lot of potential to really grow into something awesome and add to the MCU, that's ever-growing MCU. But that was episode 89 of Chew on This, a Nerds United podcast. I'm BJ.
Vic.
Don't forget San Francisco Comic-Con, September 2nd. We will be live at 10 p.m. Come see us. Chew on that. Until next time, folks.
Later.